Welcome to Sabbatical Stories, Elizabeth. Or Aunty B, should I say. What are you, Aunty B or Liz for this?
I don't know who I am anymore.
Well, do you know what? One of the main themes that came out of Series 2 was identity. So what a way to start.
What a way to start. Well, thank you, Rebecca. It's wonderful to be here.
Tim said to me yesterday, what do you mean you're recording a podcast on your birthday? What, so you're working on your birthday? And I said, do you know what? I said, I'm very lucky that I don't consider this work. I absolutely have found something that I love doing. And, you know, it almost is something that I find flow in. Suddenly an hour's gone and I've spoken to really interesting, amazing people and superhumans. And so I was like, actually, you know, it's joyous and that's what I want to do first thing on my birthday. So yeah, thanks for being here and thanks for sharing my birthday with me.
First of all, Rebecca, congratulations on an amazing season 2.
It was so good.
It was so good. I re-listened to snippets and bits and pieces for the listener. I do the editing, so I'm quite familiar with the conversations. So I just recapped a little bit yesterday to find some key themes that jumped out at me, and what an amazing bunch of conversations.
It really was. And what my intention, I think, for Series 2 was to obviously, showcase more amazing stories, but also to get experts on. And I think we really managed to nail that. We had the amazing Patrick, who is studying career breaks as his PhD. And, you know, we'll go into it some more. But for me, one of the massive intentions for the podcast overall is myth busting. And he was awesome on that side of things. We also had Lyndall, who, along with Katrina McGee, who was on the first series, opened Break Space, which is now a whole space and community for individuals thinking about or taking a break and a sabbatical. So her sort of expertise within that realm and being not only a sabbatical and career break coach, but also managing that whole community and space for individuals. And then Sahara Rose, who not specifically sabbatical or career break expert, is an expert in her field with regards to travel and travel coaching. And I think travel still played such a huge part within the stories and laced through all of the stories in Series 2 that I'm really pleased that laced through all the sort of stories, we also had the experts in as well, which I really want to sort of continue in Series 3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've written practitioners and underlined, but I did also want to touch on the very, very last episode in the season where you invited a modern shaman in, which was incredible. Just, I've never met anybody so clear on the value that they're bringing people and the value that practice can bring. It was fascinating.
Yeah, because that was the other thing I think I wanted to sort of lace through was options and inspiration of what people could do on a sabbatical. So hers was a bit of a different approach. Yes, we talked about her story and her unique taking of a break, but also what I wanted that to be was actually inspiration for perhaps what do when they're taking a break and on sabbatical, and so really showcase her work and what she did. And actually, do you know what? It was totally not intentional, but to bookend the two, we kicked off with Amanda. I really wanted a burnout story, a true burnout story, because I think we touched on that in some of the stories, but not interestingly, I thought there would be way more stories that the catalyst was burnout, but it wasn't so. And so we kicked off with Amanda, and that for me was fascinating. And that whole cortisol detox and dopamine detox was just unbelievable for me. I mean, maybe I think it's something I should do because I couldn't quite get my head around, you know, not even team sports. You know, she was advised by the doctors not to even partake in team sports and things like that. And so to have like nothing because of that, you know, injection of dopamine and addiction to competitiveness.
I thought that was going to be a much harder conversation to listen to when you told me that was who you were talking to and why. But even in her burnout, she was so driven to find the right answers for herself. I mean, yes, did a dopamine detox to try not to keep having to achieve, but even in burnout was achieving recovery in a very driven way.
Well, and that was the point, wasn't it? I think was intentional recovery.
Mm.
But what I loved was we kicked off with that, and she really touched on that whole addiction to productivity and that A-type personality of somebody who was working at a hell of a pace, trying to write a book not only in her mother tongue but also in English, and being addicted to this whole pace of life and this competitiveness and productivity. And then interestingly finishing the series with Kat, and she really touched on that addiction and how in their, when they have their circle, their sort of 3-meter circle when they're out on a quest, that even if it's something that they enjoy doing, they're advised not to do it if they feel as though they have to do it. So she used yoga as the example, in the fact that we're addicted to things that's almost routine, or addiction is where it's something that you can't not do. And so if somebody practices yoga every day, it might be amazing for their, physical and mental health. But actually from an addiction perspective and from actually sitting within that sacred circle on that vision quest, they're advised not to do it. So I just...
Would it be a distraction from them getting to the center of who they are?
Yeah, and really finding their identity. And that sort of leads on to, I think, another theme for me throughout this season, which probably was highlighted a lot more, was around really getting clear on solving for the why of the break.
Yeah.
And I think it was Martina who talked about going off, having the most amazing time, but coming back and it was almost same shit, different day.
Yeah.
In the fact that she came back to all of the problems that she thought she was, going to solve, but actually, in fact, she ran away from them rather than solving for the why.
And her episode actually really resonated with me for reasons that I wasn't expecting also. When she was talking about the reward system at her workplace and how she just got to a point where she just couldn't be excited by that anymore. Like her core values were not matched with the way that her company were rewarding her. And she was amazing at her job. She's always been phenomenal at her job. The way that the company were rewarding her for that was not exciting to her. It sort of seemed to lead to a bit of apathy and a desire to do something quite big and chunky to make a change.
It's interesting in the fact that it used to. She was very honest in the fact that used to float her boat and motivate her, and that reward system really worked for her, but actually she'd changed and her values had changed and what motivated her had changed, and therefore actually solving for that throughout the break. And she touched on the fact that she wished she'd continued to journal, and I wonder whether actually if she had continued to journal, especially as she'd got closer to going back, whether that would have actually helped her uncover what really specifically it was about the fact that she wanted to take this huge break and do something totally different. She actually ended up going back. It's actually a great testament, isn't it, to how sabbaticals and career breaks are really beneficial to employer, because she went back for 4 years, I think she said. It's a testament to any company who've got a policy or are thinking about a policy to actually, retain staff. That's where it works.
Yeah. Going back to your point on solving for the why and understanding why you're taking a break, there were a couple of moments that I perhaps had missed a little bit first time around. There were a lot of lessons from people who'd felt like they hadn't done it right and could have potentially benefited from either travel coaching or sabbatical coaching. And one in particular was Kyle, who went from 100 miles an hour in a job that he was burning out in to suddenly stopping. I mean, almost everybody mentioned during season 2 that actually not everyone's break is the same, and everybody needs to think about why they're doing it and understand what they're going to specifically them are going to get from it. And I think Kyle was very specific that he would have preferred to have gone into doing the planning and doing a travel or something that allowed him to come down more slowly than suddenly hitting the brakes and stopping.
Yeah, almost it was a crash and burn, wasn't it? And his mental health suffered. He was pretty honest about that because of going from 100 miles an hour to 0 so quickly.
And I think you said in that episode, actually, a lot of people need that. They need to just stop and find space. But for him, that wasn't what he needed at all.
No, No. And actually it's something that I come back to over and over again. When I work with individuals, it's so fascinating. They come to me absolutely with the knowledge of what they're going to do in their break. They've got this grand plan. I don't know whether it's from what society has sort of suggested that they do. It's whether it's learned from watching other people do, take a sabbatical or take a break. But they come and they're like, this is what I'm going to do. And actually, when we unpick, when we almost sort of say, okay, let's just pause, let's go back and let's unpick the why as to why are you taking this and what do you need out of it. Honestly, their plans 9 times out of 10 change because what they have in their head isn't what they need. And Lyndall, actually, she said about running away, she said that I think she's taken now 11, did she say, or 12 breaks? And the first couple, she felt as though she was just running away. And then it was this whole running away and then returning and being like, oh, right, well, not a lot's changed. And actually, she's become better and better at taking the breaks. Now they are laced through her life. I think she said that does she take one every 2 years or something like that? And really plans for it and is really intentional.
That was another theme that jumped out at me. I'm not sure if it's one that you were going to touch on, which was not pushing these things out to retirement and trying to lace them through, and particularly as a younger person. I think perhaps it was Lyndall who talked about doing the hard travel when you're younger and then thinking about other travel or experiences for when you're retired. But we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I think it's a really good lesson for us all to be a bit more present and think about getting off that treadmill from time to time and lacing these experiences through to enrich our lives now.
When I was listening back, actually, I think I must have quoted Tim Ferriss 3 or 4 times throughout this series.
Yeah.
And the mini retirements. And that's essentially what we're talking about, isn't it? He suggests taking one every 5 years. And I think it's such an amazing bookmark in the chapters. A chapter of 5 years and then taking a sabbatical as that bookmark. And then so much changes within those 5 years, but also equally they go so quickly. I think one of the amazing myths that Patrick on his episode was that breaks are taken as a last resort. So through trauma or through burnout, his research has found that to be absolutely not true. And that is demonstrated through this series because the difference in people taking the breaks. We started, as I say, with a burnout example, but then you had Santos, who took a break to explore his art. And I loved that conversation. I loved that episode. It filled me with so much joy.
Yeah. One of the things I loved about it was that he had listened to the podcast, and so he was familiar.
Yeah.
And when you asked him for his 3 top tips at the end of the podcast, he was like, oh, this is my favourite part of your podcast.
Waits for it.
That's brilliant. But yeah, he was so passionate about what he was doing. And one of the best tips that I took from that was that timing is everything. He said that he didn't want to leave his job, loved his job, and waited, I think he said 1.5 years or 2 years for the right time to take the break to focus on his art. And he felt that time that he was waiting, rather than it being frustrating, actually added to the value that he was then able to take from that break. And actually Kyle, I think he had to work another 6 months at the job that he was finding very stressful. He waited until they'd sold a property in order to be able to have that financial cushion to be able to go and take a break without having to worry about working. So yeah, timing is everything. Actually, the type of people that you interviewed in season 2, they were all planners. They were very good at planning their finances and their lives around it.
And it's interesting you say about finances. That came up a lot, didn't it? In the top tips around really not only making sure that you have saved enough and have enough to enjoy the break and the runway of coming back, to ensure that the anxiety doesn't kick in with regards to having to take the first job or having to do something that you don't want to do, and actually having that time to find the right role for you and the right next chapter for you, having solved for the why. So yeah, I think you're right. They were all planners. And one of the things that came out, I can't remember which episode it was, but somebody said that most sabbaticals aren't taken quickly, and they have that 2 to 3 year run of a seed will be planted. And I know Katrina said this in the first ever episode that we did, that the seed is normally planted like way before. I think Santosh mentioned tipping points, and they're becoming a tipping point when then it's suddenly like, no, I have to do this, I want to do this. And then there's the planning stage. And so I think for each of them, even if they weren't intentional around the tipping point, I think if we looked back on their stories, there probably was a seed planted for each and every one of them, then a tipping point of, right, no, I'm definitely going to do this. Kyle said his was driving home going, I just can't do this. I can't do this forever. Like, I'm done. And that was the tipping point. And then it was the planning of like, okay, we need to save, this is what we want to do for it. And then you've actually got the break itself.
I really enjoyed Liliana's story. The seed was planted. She had been seeking therapies and things for her well-being, and realized that the feeling that she was chasing was the feeling that she got during solo travel. And so over years took multiple trips, and then realized that was the answer for her. And now, such a beautiful full circle story. She coaches other individuals in solo travel so that they can also have this feeling.
The biggest surprise to Patrick that he articulated to us was how huge identity became almost the forefront of his research. And he knew that it would play a part, but that the identity piece was just so huge. So the ideology of a career being almost the be-all and end-all, being destructive. And that every single person who took a break out of those 24 participants, it was the identity shift that they articulated to him and they told him about without him even having to ask and even get to that part of the questioning within the research. And that it is almost the break was the purpose for them to start to explore that. And that continued, interestingly, after the break, because it's almost becomes this curiosity, I think, and that was demonstrated by the guests as well, is that the break, they started to explore themselves and who they were without their job or career or corporate identity. But actually that's just the start, because they then start to really explore that afterwards when they've gone back on their second break, on subsequent breaks. And it really, really shifts from their career being their core identity through to then them having so much more.
Yeah, and finding confidence in that as well. Lyndon described sitting on a rock in the Antarctic and the seed being planted to have her own business and feeling that she could do that, and perhaps not having had the space or the confidence to do that. And touching back on Liliana, she was in a job she didn't like, and she found the space and time and the passion and the drive to start her own business to help others. A lot of people came to that, didn't they?
I think it's also like a muscle. I see it as a muscle in the fact that if you don't use it, you don't know whether it works. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with regards to courage. I think the first step is having the courage to actually take that break, shift to something that isn't expected or isn't the societal blueprint of, getting up, going to work, working really hard, getting your promotion, etc. And interestingly, one of Patrick's myths that he busted, which blew my mind, was that you think about career break as the best thing ever. And that, everybody has the most amazing time on their break, and they are traveling the world, or they're pursuing becoming an artist like Santosh and enjoying their hobby, or just really stepping into being present and relaxing. And actually, Patrick's point was that some hated it. Some had the worst time ever on their break. And actually, the expectation of this amazing period of sacred time did not live up to expectation. And that's super interesting, because I haven't found that through my guests, I don't think. But it's something that I want to explore a little bit further, I think, as we go on, is this whole, actually, did it live up to expectation? Or, what were the parts that potentially weren't the best things ever?
Somebody did mention that it was really hard work planning travelling, or actually, doing the travel. I don't recall which one it was. Maybe it was Susie, since she travelled 7 continents. I don't know.
I also think Kyle did say something about it being, and he was like, you also have this guilt because it sort of is like everybody else is at work doing their normal jobs and you're out there having this amazing time, and you're like, oh gosh, I'm absolutely exhausted. Because I think we talked about travel burnout and the fact that it's a real thing, and it is, because it's this FOMO of, oh, I'm in this amazing place, I need to do it all and see it all. And actually sometimes you just need to be and hang out and watch Netflix and have a day off as such.
Yeah, have a rest day. I like the idea of people doing the work on themselves when they're on their sabbaticals. Santosh put it in a really lovely way, where he said that if you think the grass is greener on the other side, why don't you go and sit on the grass and see whether it is?
I loved it.
It's such a neat way of putting it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And really goes back to the lovely Steve Duke episode in season 1, where he talked about prototyping life and using the time away from your day-to-day work to see whether there's something else that suits you better.
Yeah. And I think sometimes an assumption is that we find our ikigai and we find this passion project, and then that's our where we live and love life. But actually sometimes it's not the way, and it's not, and it's only through prototyping that comes to the forefront.
So what's coming up in season I'll start again. Season 3 is coming up in the autumn.
It is.
In the UK autumn.
Yay.
Sorry, Australian spring. Tell us, what can we look forward to?
Oh, more amazing stories, of course. And also a continuation of the experts laced through. And actually, it's interesting that you touched on the financials being a real core theme and tip that came out of series 2. We've actually got an amazing finance wizard coming on in season 3. And she actually has her own, along with her sister, her own financial planning company who specialise in sabbaticals and career break planning. So for individuals at all worried about taking that period of time out and potentially, pensions not being paid into, or obviously not having an income for that period of time, they specialise in that. But she's also got the most amazing personal sabbatical story as well, so we touch on that. So yeah, more amazing stories, really global again, so individuals from across Europe, Australia, New Zealand, America, so very, very global and amazing, unique stories. If I think about prototyping life, we've got an amazing example of exactly that coming up on series 3, where an individual actually took a career break to totally relocate and move and prototype a move before jumping in and making it permanent. I have absolutely loved all of the conversations that I've had so far. I am loving having the conversations that are coming up in series 3. And for me, it just feels like a super huge privilege to really witness the stories and offer that platform for individuals to share them with the world, and for those who are interested in thinking about taking a break or about to embark on one, actually having some kind of resource that I desperately wanted and needed when I was taking a break but couldn't find, to gain inspiration, tips, hints. So yes, that's the intention, is still very much to have a resource that dip in and out of when needed.
Great. I can't wait to start editing.
Thank you so much for all your hard work on bringing this to life and supporting our journey. I have also loved working with you. And somebody said to me the other day about entrepreneurship and running your own business, and it can be lonely, and I was like, it really can, without the right community and support, it can. And I think one of the reasons I've also loved this is I get to work with you.
The fact that we both get to hear all of these stories and then chat about them after. There's definitely been some editing points where I've messaged you and it just wow moments or tips or things that I've heard from the conversations after you've recorded them that have just been super inspiring and interesting for me. So thanks for sharing them with me and with the world.
And I also love the fact that we have Joe Cook, who does all of our vocals, because actually, if people don't know the story, all 3 of us originally from a small little place in southwest England called Lyme Regis, and actually all went to school together. Jo is a lot younger than us, but her sister was in our year at school. So I feel as though it's almost this little full circle homecoming, collaboration of Woodroffians that have made this happen and brought it to life. So I'm super, super proud of it.
Absolutely. My dream for an end of season celebration would be to go to one of Jo's gigs.
Oh, let's do it!
I follow her on Instagram. she's doing all these wonderful gigs over the summer by the sea in the West Country around Plymouth and those sorts of areas. And I would just love to hear your theme tune sung live by her.
Let's make it happen for series, what would it be? Series 4, end of series 4. Yeah. We'll go and we'll do our debrief at a Joanna Cook gig.
Yeah, with our feet in the sand, glass of wine in hand.
All right.
It'd be lovely.
It's a date.
Deep down, you try, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb. It's all for you. Deep down, you try, dig deep, search wide, enjoy your climb. It's all for you. Love, dig deep, search wide. Tendencies and determination may well bring a countless words of the bandits feel that bow in strings and a heart full of soul that's connected. And I'm moving along, I won't let it all. Turn the other cheek, show them your smile. You won't believe things for a while. Taking matters into your own hands, you won't believe that you're making